Did video games come of age leaning too hard on the ancient story trope of treating female characters as property to be fought over, passive non-persons to be rescued, or trophies to be won because of systemic patriarchal sexism, or just because it's a long-standing part of our shared cultural mythology and thus an easily recognizable framework to fall back on? Trick question, those are the same thing. Anyway, love them or hate them, the history of narrative gaming up until fairly recently is indeed also a history of princesses, both in title and practice, and the rescuing thereof, and just because you're a problematic trope doesn't mean you can't be the best in your field. I'm the Game OverThinker, and these are gaming's top 10 damsels in distress. P.S. We are taking the title literally here, so don't look for any abducted dudes, that's a different list. Honorable mention. April O'Neil. April O'Neil, the reason 90s kids still feel funny about banana yellow work jumpsuits worn about 2 sizes too small. The Ninja Turtles' Wild Irish Rose has been rescued and or otherwise featured in a ton of all-time great games, but I had to leave her off the main list because she just doesn't technically originate in the world of gaming, and that kind of opened up a whole can of worms that would have thrown the whole thing into disarray. But fair or not, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has inspired more genuine classic games than almost any other non-gaming licensed property, so it didn't feel right to have this list without taking a moment to acknowledge the contributions of the lady in yellow who made green guys turn red. Number 10, MARIAN from Double Dragon. Might as well get this one out of the way. MARIAN from Double Dragon is an iconic part of video game lore for all the wrong reasons. Opening your game with your female lead getting punched in the gut and carted off in order to get players all righteously charged up to kick some ass is sleazy and creepy in an appropriately oh-so-Reagan-era way, then egging Billy and Jimmy to fight over who, gets her at the end if you make it to the finish with 2 players is, well, what else needs to be said? But hey, if Double Dragon was an end-to-end trashy 80s sleaze, it wouldn't be Double Dragon in the first place, and the unfortunate way the franchise has treated MARIAN did eventually lead to subsequent appearances working hard to rehabilitate the character both in games and in spin-offs. Plus, without her, we wouldn't have had that simply marvelous turn by Alyssa Milano in the otherwise awful Double Dragon movie. Number 9, Princess Daisy. Why did Gunpei Yokoi and Nintendo R&D 1 decide to send Mario to an entirely different kingdom to rescue an entirely different princess in Super Mario Land? No one seems to know. But while Sarasaland and Tatanga seem to be very much in Nintendo's rearview mirror at this point, Princess Daisy has subsequently taken on a life well beyond being a mere palette swap of a better-known Princess Peach. In much the same way that Luigi is perceived by many as allowed to show off more discernible personality than Mario since he's not being asked to shoulder the reputation of an entire brand, Nintendo fans have embraced the extra glimpses of just different enough spunky personality afforded to Daisy and turned her into one of the Mario brand's most beloved supporting characters. Number 8, Princess Daphne, Dragon's Lair. Here's some fun, perhaps apocryphal trivia about Dragon's Lair. They didn't really give Don Bluth and his people much of a budget to make what was very nearly a feature worth of hand-drawn original animation, so they couldn't afford live models to use as reference points for drawing Princess Daphne. So they used glamour shots from Playboy instead. Is that story true? I don't know, but it sounds true, and it'd go a long way toward explaining how this particular fairy tale princess came out seeming so different. Sure, Dragon's Lair's whole atmosphere was about fusing Frazetta-style high fantasy pulp art with classical Disney-esque storybook aesthetic, so design-wise she certainly fits the bill, but there's a playful edge to the sexuality in Daphne's animated performance reminiscent of something closer to pinup art and old-time burlesque that's altogether different from other arcade bombshells of the era. Suffice it to say, nobody was ever going to be confused about why Dirk the Daring kept putting his ass on the line in the Dragon's Lair. Number 7, Yorda from Ico. Cult classic just doesn't do it justice. Ico is a masterpiece, and Yorda represents a big reason why. Team Ico took one of gaming's most irritating mechanics, the escort mission, and not only made it the basis of an entire game, they used character and personality in tandem with rock-solid problem-solving game design in order to make one of the all-time greats of the PlayStation 2 era. Ico makes you want to protect Yorda, sure, but it does so without making her feel like a passive burden or a non-entity. That feels less like a pitch for an actual game than a personal challenge, and one that Ico rises to again and again. Number 6, Elizabeth Comstock, BioShock Infinite. Speaking of escort missions, admit it, how happy were you when that message came up during the first post-rescue firefight in BioShock Infinite telling you that Elizabeth could take care of herself and you weren't going to have to keep ducking away to make sure she wasn't getting herself killed? BioShock Infinite makes a lot of good decisions and a lot of really, really bad decisions, but despite how bizarre the narrative keeps getting, Elizabeth's characterization remains pretty much right in the good zone. She's interesting and compellingly performed, making her not at all a bother to have around, something you can't say for a lot of characters who served similar functions in similar games. Number 5, Ashley Graham, Resident Evil 4. Is Ashley annoying? Yeah, Ashley is annoying. Maybe that's why she works. Resident Evil 4 refines and polishes a lot of things that have been wonky about not just the Resident Evil series, but the so-called survival horror genre in general, and one of the main things is that the characters actually took a step toward being recognizably human. Rescuing, protecting, escorting, and then getting stuck rescuing again this terminally imperiled first daughter felt exactly like being stuck in charge of a not-that-bright, opposite of self-sufficient college kid in an already stressful situation, providing, however inadvertently, the kind of tension-exacerbating frustration that Resident Evil used to have to rely on bad controls for. Number 4, Pauline, Donkey Kong. So wait, Pauline is the mayor of New Donk City, and Donkey Kong possibly took place somewhere in the middle of the Mario timeline? Can't wait to find out what that's all about. Pauline is pretty much the progenitor of this entire list, conjured into being via Shigeru Miyamoto's gambit that investing on-screen character sprites with recognizable cultural archetypes would help players naturally develop a more potent connection to the action, and that an unassuming working-class hero trying to rescue a kidnapped girlfriend was the best fit for Donkey Kong. She's the direct functional ancestor of Princess Peach, and thus the entire genus of damsel princesses who've descended from her ever since. But between now and then, her awkward unofficial stature as the first wife of the Nintendo universe and sparse post-Kong appearances has transformed Pauline into one of the Mario franchise's most unusual and enigmatic characters, and while she may rate this high now, thanks largely to her unquestionable historic importance, if Super Mario Odyssey really is primed to reintroduce her as yet another powerful in-charge woman in the Mario series' curiously robust pantheon of matriarch figures, it'll be long overdue. Number 3, Princess Zelda, The Legend of Zelda. Now joke all you want about how often casuals confuse Link and Zelda's names, once you know the story, there's no doubt why the series may be Link's adventure, but still her legend. The Hylian avatar of the Triforce of Wisdom has taken many forms over the years, but what's always remained constant is that she exists as a mysterious figure, no matter how closely you end up working with her in the actual plot. Often depicted almost inhumanly powerful, but bound from action by certain ancient factors, the franchise uses Zelda's frequent ethereal unknowability to reinforce the idea of Link as a relatable everyman caught up in forces he and we can barely comprehend. Yes, in the end, she is still largely a damsel and still in need of rescue much of the time, but there's always something else going on with Zelda, and the Sheik storyline from Ocarina of Time remains to this day Nintendo's most successful subversion of their most tired trope. Number 2, Princess Peach, Super Mario Bros. Thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle. How many hours have we all logged trying to save this lady at this point? Actually, not quite as many as you probably think. In the original run of main series classic Mario side-scrollers, Peach getting kidnapped was only the inciting incident twice, the original Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario World. She's a player character as early as Super Mario Bros. 2, in Part 3 she doesn't get captured until just before the final world, in Super Mario Land it's Daisy who needed rescuing, and in Super Mario Land 2 nobody did. And while yes, from about Super Mario 64 on has turned into Rescue Princess Peach as the default Mario narrative, it happened largely in tandem with the company embracing a sly sense of self-aware irony about that very predictability, allowing Peach's unflappable Peachness to emerge as a kind of absurd personality affect in the sports, kart, and Smash Bros. Games. And of course, she's the only damsel on the list to eventually get a full-blown game of her very own. She may be the eternal face of a problematic trope, but it hasn't brought her down yet. Number 1, Samantha Nishimura, Tomb Raider. It took people a bit too long to wake up to it, but the 2013 reboot of Tomb Raider from Crystal Dynamics was one of the very best action games of its generation, a modern classic that reinvented Lara Croft into something welcome and new, but also instantly familiar. Yes, even if there was barely any actual tomb raiding involved, if you want to be pedantic about it. One place in particular it succeeded was in telling a genuinely compelling story, and Sam was a big part of it. Sure, on paper Sam was very nearly a textbook damsel in distress, differentiated from Peach, and the rest mainly by her rescuer also being a woman, but the relationship between the two is nuanced and unique in a way that gaming narratives rarely get to be. Yes, it's easy and completely valid to look at Lara and Sam's intense bond and simply see an unacknowledged or unrealized romance, but they also read just as easily as close friends, surrogate sisters, and multiple other levels of compelling human relationship drama, and it's all well performed enough that you really do want to see Lara save the day and get them both off the damn island. It's the rare save the princess narrative where the game is making sure you want to pull off the rescue because you care about the outcome, not just because the archetypes are telling you you're supposed to, and that's why Samantha Nishimura is the best damsel in distress of all time. And that's the list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Tell us about it in the comments and suggest other lists you might like to see. Remember to like, subscribe, share with all your friends, and please consider donating to the Movie Bob Patreon to support this and other series like it. Hey gang, here's a question that keeps coming up. If your handle is Movie Bob, where are your movie reviews? Well, my old reviews are in a lot of places. You'll find many of them on my YouTube channel, but you'll find the brand new ones on Geek.com, an awesome site that's also your one-stop news source for science, TV, gaming, technology, nerd culture, the works. You can find all my reviews directly by going to geek.com/author/bchipman, because that's my real name, and you can get regular updates on all my reviews and all of Geek.com's other great content by signing up for their kick-ass newsletter at subscribe.geek.com. And don't forget to also subscribe to the Geek.com YouTube channel, where you'll find the videos that accompany my reviews and tons of other great content too. Remember, that's Geek.com, the Geek.com newsletter, and Geek.com on YouTube. Make sure you don't miss out on all the latest Movie Bob reviews. You can also check out my own new website, Movie Bob Central, where you'll find my blog, links to all my work, and shop for my books, ebooks, and future Movie Bob products. And please remember to like these videos, share them with all of your friends, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching another Movie Bob production.